Hi, GQ. I'm Gaten Matarazzo. I play Dustin on Stranger Things, and I am here to break down his biggest moments.
It's almost here. What is it?
What if it's the Demogorgon? Oh, Jesus, we're so screwed if it's the Demogorgon.
It's not the Demogorgon. An army of troglodytes charged into the chamber.
Troglodytes.
Told you.
I knew Caleb before we had done the show, so the ice was already broken there, and we had been buddies before. But kids become friends very quickly. There's no real vetting process with like new friends when you're 12. It's so easy to just ask, can I be your friend? Then it usually kicks off from there. I wish it's something that adults did more. The first scene that you see of us in the basement, I might be wrong about it, but I think it was the first scene shot in production of the show. I think that was day one across the board. Wish I could remember more of it. I think it was so much of a blur and it was such a long time ago. The one thing that sticks out to me more than anything is how much we kept breaking character, which for the first day of a show is probably not the best first impression to your creative team, but we had an absolute blast and they tell me they had fun as well. But I think I remember them sweating a little bit at the idea that there might be a year of this. I didn't know how to play D&D. I now know how to play D&D, but I want to get my friends into it. And the only way you can is if you know a DM or if you are a DM. So I have to transition over to try to DM so that I can introduce more people to it.
Good night, ladies.
Kiss your mom night for me.
One of the things that I did know how to do quite well was ride a bike. It was already in my special skills on my resume. And I remember they had a day designated to not teaching us, but I think gauging how well we rode on our bikes. Because not only did they know we had to ride our bikes, but we also had to do it without helmets because kids did not traditionally wear helmets in the 1980s. And what was supposed to be a day of training has ended up being a day of us goofing off riding our bikes on a big soundstage. The day the van flipped, we didn't actually get to see it. They wanted to flip a van practically, and we wanted to stay for it, but we had to go to school during our time off. The first time they tried it, they had this rigged piston system under the van where the back one was supposed to fire harder than the front one so that it would get airtime but flip, and I think it went horribly wrong. And so they had to do most of that in post, I think. But it looks really cool. I think still holds up.
How much further?
I don't know. He's only tell direction, not distance. You really need to learn more about compasses.
If anybody had asked me, how does a compass work? How does a compass know? I would have been like, magic, I guess. I don't know. I have no clue how a compass is supposed to work.
Why is this all on me?
Because you're the compass genius.
It's fun playing someone smarter than me. It's a lot of pressure because I want to look like I know what I'm talking about. I feel like I learn something new every time I see a monologue written out that I have to memorize.
Maybe the gate moved.
No, I don't think it's the gate. I think it's something else screwing with the compass.
I think I remember reading at the table read and knowing that that was going to be a pretty big moment for him. I love that stuff. I love getting to do that as Dustin specifically. Some of my favorite days is when I get to kind of just spew words, because that's what I do anyway.
Do you even remember what happened on the Bloodstone Path?
There's such a pace and a structure or a cadence to the way the show moves.
We couldn't agree on what path to take, so we split up the party.
And I think it's specifically because of its scene structure and because of its dialogue that you kind of pick up that are funny enough that seem to stick pretty well. But when it comes to entire scenes, there's kind of a hyperstructure that I think makes Stranger Things work really well. That being said, we've always had a lot of freedom in creating, I guess, our vibe or developing that over time with each other.
Do you think she's acting weird?
You're asking if the weirdo is acting weird.
Justin's always been relatively supportive, if not neutral, to the idea of Eleven being a part of what the boys call the party.
Where are you from, exactly?
Bad place.
Sweden.
I have a lot of Swedish family.
She hates it there.
Cold.
Sub-zero.
Whereas Lucas at the time seems very hesitant.
But did you ever stop to think that maybe she's the monster?
Which is understandable, I think, in retrospect. But Dustin's kind of stepped back on the whole issue and has just been more impressed by her than anything else, because there's a new friend with superpowers around, and that's really cool.
Let's get out of here. Let's go. Go. Yeah, that's right. You better run. She's our friend and she's crazy.
That line in particular, I remember the table read. It got a bit of a chuckle for sure. It's objectively quite funny.
What are you, little guy?
When Dustin decides to keep his newfound friend, it's a telling moment that it's the first time he kind of stands up for himself and going against the party's wishes as to what they think is probably a safe bet. And he's probably in the wrong. It's very much like Curiosity Killed the Cat. He seems like the one guy who's like, everyone's like, cats or dogs, and he's like, lizards. And it's like, yeah, whatever. It's a fun moment and a cool little side plot.
Wait a sec, how big?
First he was like that. Now he's like this.
I swear to God, man, it's just some little lizard, okay?
It's not a lizard.
How do you know?
How do I know if it's not a lizard?
Yeah, how do you know if it's not just a lizard?
Because his face opened up and he ate my cat.
I was so excited to hear that we had even had one scene together because I was always so excited when Joe was on set. He was such a cool older brother. Even from season 1, it was such a fun day when Joe was on set because he was just so funny. He was so good with us when we were young. He made it very comfy. I found out we were going to do that pretty soon before we started filming because we were already filming the 4th episode of the 2nd season when we didn't really know what was coming after that. And they had a bit of a writing hiatus so that they could figure out what the next few episodes were going to look like before we finished. They cut it pretty close, if I remember correctly, to when we needed to film. I can imagine that was very stressful. And I think that helped because we got to film that stuff before they finished writing the end of the season, and they liked it so much that they knew that they wanted to have it stick around because they could write it pretty much in real time. Just for that season, though. Not usually. They don't usually write the show in real time.
Use the shampoo and the conditioner, and when your hair is damp, it's not wet, okay? When it's damp, you do 4 puffs of the Farrah Fawcett spray.
Farrah Fawcett spray?
I don't think either one of us would have understood the reference to Farrah Fawcett spray. I think that was written by true people who lived through the 80s. That's such a fun monologue. It's actually my favorite scene between us. It's one of my favorite scenes in the show. I think it's really symbolic that they're on the train tracks and like a really cool new journey together and they're at a bit of a crossroads. Feels similarly to the train track scene in the previous season as well when they're looking for the gate when they find that the compasses don't work. It's fun to see two characters who seemingly have nothing in common kind of realize that they're in a very similar situation. They're both kind of after their own forms of like unrequited love. And I think it's very funny to see somebody who's so known for being quite successful in the dating department give advice to somebody who has no idea what they're doing. And I think it's very endearing. And nice of Steve to not pick on him in that moment, where he easily could have, and you would have expected him to. I think that scene is part of a reason why we stick around beyond that point, because there was a good amount of chemistry between the two characters and with Joe and I there.
You got the job!
You got the job! Yay! Oh!
The handshake, we came up with that on the fly about 15 minutes before, because it just says in the script they do a secret handshake. I was like, great, so we got to come up with that. We came up with a quick little backstory. Dustin gave Steve like a nerd rundown of all the things, if we were going to be able to converse well, that I would have definitely, we would have rented Star Wars. I envisioned Steve actually genuinely liking it quite a lot, more so than he would have expected. And that's why we have our little lightsaber moment.
How many children are you friends with?
We were stoked to find out that Maya was joining the cast. It's always really fun when you introduce new characters. They did it in the season prior when Sadie joined. We knew they had a good eye for how new people were going to contribute well to the gang as a whole, and Maya fit right in.
Holy mother of God.
The Death Star set specifically was so much fun to work in. It kind of starts this borderline Scooby-Doo arc for the Scoop Troop, which is Dustin, Steve, Robin, and Erica, which is a quartet I don't think anybody would have expected. Filming on that set was always a real blast.
Come on! Go, just get out of here! Go, come on now! No, just go get them out, okay? What are you doing? No! I won't forget you! No!
There's so many parts in the show where it feels like Dustin's like his parent. A lot of people did like the talk about Babysitter Steve or Dad Steve or Mom Steve, which I think really was very funny. But especially the scene in the third season when Robin and Steve unfortunately are injected with truth serum. This season is crazy. I keep forgetting. And not only do they tell the truth without wanting to, but they also seem like they're having a ball while doing it. And I have to kind of deal with them while they are under the influence. And it is very much like Mom Dustin for a while.
Steve, are you drugged?
How many times, Dad? I don't do drugs.
Yeah, they definitely, I think, teach each other a lot throughout, which is really fun. Maya and Joe work really well together when Robin comes out to Steve in a time when that really isn't seen as a norm, and for Steve to respond so maturely and openly to it.
Tammy Thompson, you know, she's cute and all, but I mean, she's a total dud.
She's not.
I think it's really great. They did buy out a section of a mall, just like a big food court section of what was still a functioning mall. We had to put curtains up. It was so fun. It felt like a playground. It felt like almost like a museum or even like an amusement park. And I think everything's still set up there. I think people, after they recognized what mall it was or heard rumors about it, went back to where we had filmed and saw that everything that we had built was still hanging out there.
This is Suzie. I copy.
Suzie!
Dusty Bun? Dusty Bun.
Dustin does have a girlfriend at this point. It's fun. A long-distance relationship with Suzie.
Turn around. Look at what you see in her face.
Matt and Ross, the creators, kept on saying they wanted to get me to sing in the show. I was like, that will ruin the show. You cannot do that. Please tell me you're not going to do that. And they just kept saying they would. I was like, there's no way they're going to find a way to do it. And there's such an aesthetic shift in that third season, and it culminates to something where it's like, it feels like a now or never moment for something like that, where this will not work at any other point in the show unless you do it right now. And they just pounced on it, and it was very fun to be a part of.
Reach the stars, fly a fantasy.
People will walk up to me on the street and just play the song at me, and I don't really know what to do. I just go like, that's me.
Cultists chant, "Hail, Lord Vecna. Hail, Lord Vecna."
A lot of people, when they shift from 7th to 8th grade, either develop new hobbies or make new friends or try to start fresh in some way. And a lot of friend groups that were really close in elementary and middle school tend to split up at that point. And there's kind of a bit of a rift there at the beginning when Lucas develops a new hobby and makes some friends and starts to succeed.
I don't get the big deal. Just talk to Eddie. Get him to move Hellfire to another night.
Just talk to Eddie. You want something, freak?
Joe Quinn, who plays Eddie, is a terrific actor and one I had been a fan of before he had joined the cast. So I was really, really excited to see that he was joining.
Henderson told me you were a badass. Insisted on the matter, in fact.
Wait, Henderson said that?
Oh, yeah, shit. Kid worships you, dude. Like, you have no idea.
I've said this before. I don't want to feel like I'm being a dead horse here with other interviews, but it's something I do love to bring up, that even though Steve helped Dustin find a bit of confidence, Eddie was the first one to suggest that he didn't necessarily need to change anything about himself to have that confidence. He could have his weird niche interests. He could be an unapologetic nerd and kind of give the middle finger to anybody that really seemed to care.
Nice. Thanks.
Because Dustin's always had a vibe to me that he at least wants to show that he doesn't care what other people think about him. And he sees someone who really does embody that. And that's really exciting. And that's such a fun little trio, even though there's not a whole lot of screen time between the three of them together. I think they really wanted to dive into a potential rivalry there, a real like tug of war between who was gonna keep Dustin as a friend.
How many times do I have to be right on the money before you guys just trust me?
Jesus Christ, this kid's got to get his ego in check.
It's his tone, right?
There was a nuance to Steve and Eddie kind of hitting it off as well over their love or their appreciation for Dustin. They both seem to have an intrigue and a respect towards him That's more fun to me than a cliche like, no mine, no mine. Any sequence in the show that's very techy, those are always very choreographed, and it takes a bit to get into the rhythm of them. They're a lot of fun, but the one thing that's the issue that comes about is if we are presented by being in front of interdimensional monsters, there aren't really interdimensional monsters there, and so we're more or less just screaming and reacting to either an X on a green screen or a tennis ball, or sometimes if we're lucky, like a model like head on a stick of what we might be looking at.
I think it's my year, Henderson. I think it's finally my year.
That's a tough scene. There was the scene that I shot with Joe during his death. Spoilers for season 4, by the way. Too late, I already said it. That was a tough one I wasn't really centered in, one I didn't really feel very confident in. We ended up redoing it, at least my coverage. But I should have been less selfish and stopped worrying about how much I didn't like what I was doing, because that scene really is for Joe. And it works because it's Joe's scene. We filmed Eddie's death beforehand, and we went in and shot pretty recently after the stuff in the gym, where I have to, unfortunately, break the tragic news to his uncle. And that's a pretty weird environment to do it in, because there was like 300 people doing background work. Pretty intense to try to do it. Almost felt kind of like doing a play in front of an audience of a lot of people, but that audience is also acting in the scene with you, which is quite weird. It was the first time that I had met my scene partner, which is a lot of pressure, but maybe it kind of helped that it was a stranger, because he is a stranger to Dustin. It raises the stakes so much when the crux of a show is saving someone not just loved by the characters, but also loved by the audience. And that's what we're presented with in the 4th season for a good chunk of it. You know that Max is in real danger from the very beginning, and the stakes are incredibly high. And that, along with a very skillfully directed and edited season, I think culminates in a pretty epic finale there. It's the first time you look around and say, I think we lost. I don't think we did what we needed to do. I mean, the rifts opened up throughout Hawkins. Max is looking pretty rough. Your bones snapping and crap like that. Pretty brutal, pretty gruesome. I think Caleb and Sadie in that scene specifically up in the attic, it's some of my favorite work in the show. Gut-wrenching. I think Caleb is brilliant in that scene. The ending of that and the ending of us being really scared for our friend and it not really paying off is, I think, a pretty interesting way to start the next one. It lacks the usual optimism that I think the show is known for, is that we're going to persevere through this. It's the first time in which we look around and say, maybe we won't. And that's really scary. All right, thank you, GQ. I appreciate you listening to me talk about myself. I hope you watch Stranger Things Season 5, which is out now. Thanks, guys. And something I love about Dustin that I would like to do more in myself is be unapologetic.
Keep an eye out for trouble.
You keep an eye out. It's my goddamn theory.
You heard Nance.
Who put her in charge?
I did.
He's a cocky little shit. I love playing him a bunch, but he's quite crass.